Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing this morning? Good. I'm super excited to be here. I promise you I won't keep you all the way through lunch. I'll just be up here for a few hours. I'm super pumped. Typically, when I have these kinds of conversations in rooms like this, I use them for teaching moments. I talk a little bit about our company, what we build, how we build it. I dive in a little bit about our modeling, financial modeling, our fulfillment modeling, logistics, all of those things. But I think that because we have such an incredible group of speakers today, I'm going to leverage my time to do a little bit of storytelling instead of talking about a bunch about the company. This is the point of the time where I'll give you all the opportunity to. I'll give you the opportunity to be able to give me your divided attention. So if I look down and I see you on your phones, on your computer screens, your laptops, your iPads, I'm just assuming that you're tweeting about something that you heard up here on the stage. It helps me to be able to identify what's important and resonates with the community and the audience, but it also allows us to be able to share ideas across the folks that are in this room and the folks that are joining us online and the ones that couldn't make it here. So I'll leave the Twitter up there just so you guys can have that. Also, if you guys are Instagram folks like me, if you're taking pictures, please tag me in your stories. All right. I'm going to talk about a few things here in the few minutes I have with you. One, I'm going to talk about how I leverage resilience in order to be able to build the company that we want to help shape the way we look at the criminal justice system. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the power behind creating empathy and storytelling, and how I use that, and we use that today in hopes that we can shift the conversation when we leave here and go upstairs for lunch. The final thing I want to talk about is how we leverage community and systems in order to be able to build a success path for not only myself and my team members, but also to our scholars at the Flikshop School of Business, which I'll talk about in a second. This photo here on the screen was taken about 3 weeks before I turned 15 years old. That's me, it's my mom, it's my sister, and the cute little baby, that's my niece. Now, here's the thing. My niece is 27 now, so this picture makes me feel super old every time I leverage it inside of a slide. But this picture was also taken a couple of days before I made one of the worst decisions of my life. During my sophomore year of high school, my best friend and I, who was a junior at the same high school, we played in the same basketball team together, we made a horrible decision to carjack a man in a shopping mall parking lot. I pulled a gun out on the man, tapped on his window with the firearm, demanded that he get out of the car. My best friend and I, we jumped in the driver's side, the passenger side, and we pulled off. Now, that decision that we made that night will land us in front of police officers the very next day, getting arrested for that carjacking, and then eventually standing in front of a judge as I listened to him sentence me to 8 years in adult maximum security prisons. I was a 15-year-old kid, and while I really couldn't understand what was happening in the courtroom, now when he was sentencing me, I understood 5 years for this, 3 years for this, spend some time for that, do a year. There were a bunch of new vocabulary words that I had to learn because I was in my sophomore year of school, and the vocabulary words that I just was working on a couple of weeks ago was like achondroplasia. Now I have new vocabulary words like arraignment, pre-sentencing updates, and trial times. And I had to learn how to be able to navigate through this while my brain was trying to grapple with a reality. In fact, for the first 2 years of my incarceration, I lived in denial. I just knew that my mom, my lawyers would figure out a way to talk to the prosecutor and the judge to get me home. I mean, clearly there wouldn't be someone that would keep me away from opening up Christmas gifts with my friends or going to homecoming or eventually being able to go to prom. Clearly they wouldn't keep me there through the last day of school, Ma, because if they did, then it would lower my GPA and it would prevent me from moving on and possibly taking on that scholarship that I knew that I would win to go to a D1 school and allow for me to pursue a career as an electrical engineer. But if I'm being honest, while I was going through this stage, I'm still the kid on the housing unit that was like playing tag on the housing unit. Rule number 1, don't play tag in a maximum security prison. Okay. The crazy thing is, I'm legit walking through the housing unit and tapping people and running. They're like, I bet you can't catch me. And they're like, yo, this is interesting because I'm the youngest kid on the prison compound. And the way that my judge sentenced me, I had the least amount of time on the compound because most of the people there were like my cell partner who was there to serve life plus 43 years in prison. In fact, this was definitely the hardest time of my life as I began to learn how to move through this new journey as a teenager. Now, this photo was taken in a prison visiting room with my mom, which would be the next family photo that we would take. And don't let the waterfall in the background fool you. I promise you, we were really having a tumultuous moment in trying to figure out how to work through this new space that we knew that we would have to live through for the next several years. It wouldn't be until year number 2 when I'm walking around the prison rec yard with one of my friends, Danny B, who was in his mid-50s. Now, it's interesting because, prison is one of the only places you can be like a 17-year-old and your best friend is in his mid-50s. And we're walking around the rec yard and I asked him, how long have you been here, Danny? And he looked me in my face with a straight face without breaking a stride around that dirt rec yard track that we would walk around every day. And he would tell me that he had been in there for 31 years. Now, it's interesting because now I really have to try to figure out how I'm going to deal with this because my heart dropped down to my toes in that moment when he told me he served 31 years already. My palms got sweaty. Everything that was in my purview became real now. That actual tower in the booth with the correctional officers holding the rifle, threatening to shoot me if I moved around the rec yard too fast, or the ones who had told me that if I moved and adjusted inside of a room, and I wasn't supposed to be there, I could get more time. All of it became real in that moment. And now I knew that the next 6 years of my life would be spent growing up in some of the state of Virginia's worst prisons. And I didn't know how to deal with that. I slipped into an incredible space of depression. And I prayed for God to shift this in my life. The same God that my grandmother would introduce me to when I was a baby, and the same God that my mom would teach about in Sunday school, and the same God that my aunts and uncles promised would be there to save me when times got rough. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, but yet every day seemed to look like the movie Groundhog Day because nothing changed. I would spend the rest of these next 6 years in prison. I would spend my 16th birthday in prison, 17th birthday in prison, 18th birthday, 19th birthday, 20th birthday, my 21st birthday, my 22nd birthday, and 23rd birthdays all growing up inside of these cells. And that depression took over. I became very hopeless. I knew that my best friend who I lived in that cell with, who talked about the possibility of the last thing that he would see being cinder block walls, would probably be my reality as well. I would definitely die in prison. I knew it with an absolute certainty. I remember calling home to my mom, and when my mom, she let me live in this space of delirium for my first 2 years, when she realized that it actually hit me, that I was going to have to serve all 8 of those years, my mom would begin to fret, and I would tell her, Mom, listen, this is the time that I need you to start grieving for me now. I need you to let me go and realize that when they call you to ask you to pay $500 for my body, because that's what happens if you die in prison, then you'll be able to give me a proper burial and you won't have to try to wrestle with all of the emotional pain that's going to happen as a result of that. Start grieving now and let me go. I won't call you anymore. Don't come and visit me any longer. I won't write you any letters. Let's let this go. We're going to let this die. All of those dreams that you had, let them go and focus on my sister and my baby niece now. My mom's on the phone, and while I couldn't understand why she continued to try to emote here, I'm like, Mom, we don't have time to you be crying, talking about I'm your only son and all of that. Look, you need to let me go now. I look out of my cell door window and I can see body bags going wheel down the ruck yard at any given day, Mom. It's only likely that I'm gonna have to do it. Do you know what I gotta do to protect myself, Mom? I literally have to tape a lawnmower blade that I shaved inside of my cell to my leg every day simply because I'm from D.C. and D.C. has a big major beef with Richmond, Virginia, and I'm only one of like 5 of us here from D.C. So it's probably likely that I'm going to have to go to war in that rec yard, and I don't want to get you here about me having to cut someone or someone cutting my head off and you getting this horrible news, Mom. Let me go now. It's interesting because that same day I hung up the phone with my mom came to visit me that very next weekend. After I just told her to not come and visit me and I'm not going to call you again. I walk in the visiting room and I'm looking at her. I'm like, Mom, what are you doing here? Didn't we just have this conversation? I told you, let me go now because I am going to possibly die in here and I don't want you to keep having to go through this. I don't want you to have to come to the prison to have to get felt up and them patting you down and telling you what you can and cannot wear simply because they believe that you're going to be smuggling some contraband in here to give to me. Mom, I don't want to have to put you through this any longer. Stop coming to visit me. My mom's sitting across the table from me in that prison visiting room. And she looks at me in typical mother fashion, and she looks at me and says, Marcus, have you lost your mind? Boy, there ain't nothing that you can do that can out-criminalize my love for you. There's nothing you can do that can push me away. I will love you from the moment that you came out of my body into the moment that you go in the grave. And it happens while you're in prison. I promise you I want to be there at every stage of it. In fact, Marcus, I want to make you a promise today so that you can understand how important it is for you to begin to bring some hope back into your life. I get what you're saying. I hear you. There's no hope here. It's despair. It's a bunch of gloom. I understand. I'll never be able to get it. I'm like, Mom, you're right. You won't get it, Mom. When you get in your car and you drive down 95, your wind is going to be blowing through your head, listening to your favorite radio station, and you're going to enjoy it. When I leave out of this visiting room, I'm going to have to walk out of those double doors, and you see that correctional officer that's standing right there, Mom? The first thing that he's going to tell me to do is strip naked and squat and cough. Our lives are completely different, Mom, and I need you to get this now. My mom looks at me and is like, boy, be quiet. Just be quiet. You're talking stupid, and clearly you aren't listening to me. In fact, what I want to do, I want to make a promise to you today. Marcus, I'm going to promise to write you a letter or send you a picture every day from this day forward for the next 6 years of your life so that you can see the world through my lens. I'm going to send you photos of everything and everybody that I can because I need you to understand that there's still a life that's waiting for you on the other side of that fence. And I don't care what you say. I still am praying for your success because you still will win after this moment. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at him like, Mom, so you think some Polaroid's going to change anything about this situation I'm in? And she looks at me like, I don't care what you say. What you can't do is stop me from doing all the things I'm doing. And I promise you, if I come up here and visit you and you won't walk in this visiting room, I'm going to ask the warden, I need to go see him, wherever he is, because I need to go smack him upside his head because the boy done lost his mind. I'm like, Mom, I'm not in summer camp. You can't treat me like this anymore. I'm in prison now. It's like, you're still my son, and I will treat you like you are my son. I love you, and I will be there for you every day of your life. So I walk out of the visiting room, and shortly my mother begins to send me these photos. My mom sends me photos of everything. I mean, the most interesting things. My mom was like Instagram before there was Instagram. She would take pictures of food back in the day. And y'all remember those like 24 exposure, one-time use cameras? You would take the Walgreens and go get delivered. My mom was that person. She'd taking pictures of a cheeseburger with a long 4-page letter. One day you're going to enjoy your fat, juicy burger when you come home. Take pictures walking through the mall of a mattress in a department store. Marcus, one day you're going to sleep in a pillow-top mattress when you come home. She would send me photos of my nieces and nephews getting on roller coasters at amusement parks. They would be sitting there in the picture, they eating funnel cake. And here's the interesting thing about pictures that come into prison. There's no social media in prison. There's no internet there. There's a security layer that won't allow for any of those social platforms. So it's no Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, easy emailing, text messaging, any of those technologies. So my mom, by her sending this stuff into me, she's like providing all of the new fresh content in prison. Nobody else in prison gets mail like this, right? So now my best friends who I now have started to build this kindred spirit with, these become my brothers, and now they're living vicariously through my mother's letters and photos. They stand out the window, hey, Marcus, you got mail yet? What happened with your sister? Did she actually get the certificate? What's going on? And then now, it's like, when she sends these photos, right, it's interesting because the new content will cause these new conversations, will cause these arguments in a prison housing unit. And the funniest argument is when you sit on the sideline and you hearing people arguing about funnel cake. I mean, these are grown men with life sentences arguing about whether or not you should put powdered sugar and strawberries on funnel cake or whether or not you should put chocolate on funnel cake. And here I am engaging in this craziness. And my mom, she loves to tell the story of the first time she realized that I was sharing these photos with my friends because now they're walking in the prison visiting room and they, hey, Miss Bullock. She's like, how do they know me? I don't know. I don't know these people. I'm like, Mom, you send me the pictures. It was a thing. Just go. She's like, hey, how you doing? Miss Bullock, did you get your washing machine and dryer fixed? She like, Marcus, how do they know about my washing? I'm like, Mom, you send me the pictures. It was a thing. One dude used to work for Maytag. Another guy talking about Kenmore is better. It was a whole thing in the housing unit. Just go with it. She's like, okay, I'm working on it. Working on getting the dryer fixed. My mom became this new wave of content that would begin to not only keep me connected to her and my family and our community in a very interesting way, my friends also began to love this experience that I would begin to help create with my mom. Fast forward to 2004, I'm 23 years old, and they finally come to my bunk and they come and tell me, Marcus, come pack your bags, you're going home. This is a surreal moment. Because I just served 8 years in prison. I really can't even explain why I've been for the almost last decade of my life. I have no idea what the world is looking like when I come home. In fact, when we first walked through those double doors when they released me, and you know, all of y'all know who came to pick me up from the prison that day. My mom and I stood in this car, and when we go through the first traffic light, the light flashes, and I'm like, what in the world just happened? What was that? My mom was like, no, that's a camera, and it's a speeding ticket. I'm like, yo, they got cameras on the traffic lights now? It's crazy. I went in 96, and like the internet was first dropping, and when I came home, like there was no internet. People in my neighborhood definitely didn't have a personal computer inside of their home, and so when I came home, there was Google. Like my whole world had exploded. I'm in a room, in the back room at my mom's house, and I'm like typing in, tiger. Mom, come in, look. It's a tiger on the screen. Look, you can type in anything on this thing. And she's like, okay, you're learning Google. Okay, I got it. And while I'm trying to figure out how to create this new success path for my life, because while I'm honest, I didn't really understand the power behind what my mom was building there inside of the empathy that she was expressing. I learned very quickly there's a big difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy when you feel for someone, empathy when you feel with someone. And my mom was very intentional about trying to figure out ways to feel with me along that journey. It allowed for me to be able to have a level of confidence that would create something that I could never have dreamt of. And I believed that I would come home and succeed. So the first thing I try to do when I come home, as like other returning citizens who also have the benefit of having a blessed environment to live in, because that's not all of us. We go out and go figure out how to accomplish the second thing on our checklist after housing, which is to go get a job. I'm going to go apply for jobs, and my last grade completed was the 9th grade. I never had a job before. I've never been on an interview before, never had a driver's license before. I had to learn how to figure out how to go get my birth certificate and social security card, begin this journey. And every job application that I would apply for would all have the same magical question lurking, looming, waiting for me to go ahead and check that box. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? Now, if I'm being honest, I knew that this day would come when I would have to check that box and I would have to say, yes, I've been convicted of a felony. And that didn't bother me because I understood that there was some fighting that I was going to have to do to help redeem myself from the horrible decision I made as a teenager. And so while I applied for job after job after job, and the first 41 of them, 41, telling me no, the 42nd application asked the same exact question, but they asked it in a different way. They asked, have you been convicted of a felony, comma, within the last 7 years? Now, I had just served an 8-year prison sentence. No, I have not been convicted of a felony within the last 7 years. Wait a minute, do people have felonies when they come in to apply for these kinds of jobs? Really? Tell me more about that, hiring manager. What do they say and they do when they do this? Oh my goodness, I'm so glad that that's not me. I have not been convicted of a felony in the last 7 years, so I really am excited about this opportunity. It was a job at a paint store, and it was a job paying maybe $1 or $2 over minimum wage, but I was so excited. I'm thrilled that I had the opportunity to go out and prove to the world and myself that I could come home and be successful at anything. And my first entrance was at this paint store where I would be mixing paint behind a register. I was the guy who would come in and you would ask to give that blue Arctic ice, and I would shoot the stuff in the gallon of paint. We shake it up and I would give it to you. And I promise you, like, I was the happiest person ever in a paint store. I was so excited to sell paint. All of the other people that worked there were like, yo, dude, you are way too happy to be here selling paint. And I'm like, yo, you have no idea how excited I am to be able to be out here selling paint. In fact, the customers would see the same exuberance and they were like, Marcus, this is really interesting how happy you are. How much do you charge to paint kitchens? And I'm like, well, Ms. Johnson, we don't paint kitchens here. I'm about to sell you this blue Arctic ice so you can paint your own kitchen. The painters will come into the paint store, and it was interesting because this was back in 2005, 2006, and the painters would come into the paint store and they would complain about this new pending recession that people were talking about. They were talking about this housing bubble and this housing crisis that was pending, and folks were going to be losing jobs and construction workers were going to get laid off. I had no idea what they were talking about. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't understand why you're saying this, because there are customers that come into the paint store every day and they ask me to paint their kitchens. So you definitely shouldn't have a hard time finding work. A light bulb goes off. And I'm like, wait a minute. And I could be the conduit between the painters who are looking for work and the Ms. Johnsons who need their kitchens painted. I started a small painting business that will allow for me to be able to bill the Ms. Johnsons of the world the $250 to be able to paint her kitchen, and ask the painters to do it for me for $200. I take the 50 and keep it moving. And more customers, they will come into the paint store. And it was interesting what would happen as a result of me taking these side projects and then giving side projects to other painters, because the customers that will come into the paint store, the Ms. Johnsons, they will come in, and while all of the other team members wanted to help them, I can help you over here. They're like, no, it's okay. We'll wait for Marcus. He's probably going to help me get my basement painted. The painters will come into the paint store and they're like, we can help you over here. Nah, that's okay. We'll wait for Marcus. He's going to give me some side work. I became the go-to guy, and my line was out of control going out of the store every day, to the point, shout out to Sharon Williams, because Sharon Williams is the one that gave me this job. The teams over Sharon Williams, they like, we have to go visit this store in Washington, D.C., where this one employee works, because apparently he's selling more paint than anybody in the entire company. We got to figure out how he's doing it. They didn't know I'm over here hustling like crazy, right? And we grew this thing to a point where I would love running this painting business. And I told the folks at Sherwin-Williams, thank you so much for this amazing opportunity. I'm excited to be able to venture out on my own and run my painting company by myself. I would start painting these kitchens and homes and exterior homes. And then we would grow to boys and girls clubs and a couple of restaurants. And now I would get a hotel. And then I would land on a contract that would completely change my life at BWI International Airport. I signed the BWI contract to be able to paint the airport, and this is a 3-year contract with a 2-year option on it, and they use all types of acronyms. I have no idea. I'm in a pre-bid meeting. I've never been to a pre-bid meeting. I'm in a pre-bid meeting. They're like, the ITB and the RFQ and the RFP. I'm like, yeah, whatever y'all said, but I can do the job. It doesn't matter. I can do it. And I don't know why they gave me this job, but they did. I'm so grateful for them. I get this project, and I didn't realize it, but while I would employ so many other people to help be able to paint inside of this space, I didn't know that out of the first 18 employees that we hired, 16 of them were all returning citizens just like me. I went from the job seeker to the job giver, and I couldn't believe this new life I was living. In fact, people would come into the job interview and like, Marcus, thank you so much for this opportunity. I just want to let you know ahead of this time, before you do the background check, I have a felony conviction on my record. Now, I'm sitting on the other side of the desk. I'm like, word? You got man, I got 3. How many you got? What y'all do? You did what? Oh, you knew you was going to get locked up for that, man. You hired. Come on. And it's crazy because we're building this thing, and my friends who I still left in prison, they were calling home, and they're like, yo, bro, you are living your best life out there. My mom was able to finally retire from the government, and I was able to give her this beautiful car, luxury car for her retirement gift. My sister was able to move out of a horrible neighborhood that she was living in. I had this amazing condo in DC that I was living in. I was able to employ all of these incredible folks. We were able to shift a narrative on what the power could look like when you had a second chance. And my whole world was shifting. My friends on the phone like, bro, like, do you remember when your mother used to send you pictures? Why you ain't send me no pictures, man? And I'm like, look, my new life is RFPs, ITBs, and RFQs. I just don't have the bandwidth to go home. I don't even know how to print a picture off my phone. Bro, if you want Instagram, I promise you see my whole life. But the steps of having to print a picture, go find an envelope, because it's all snail mail. I got to go buy stamps. I got to go Google your address. I have friends in this prison. It's just so much. Bro, I promise you, I'm going to send the pictures, but I just got to make time to do it. Monday would turn into Tuesday. Tuesday would turn into 3 weeks. 3 weeks would turn into 6 months. And now I'm like answering the collect call like 0. Yo, what's up, bro? Hey, man, I promise you I'm going to send you this picture. I know I owe you this picture. I felt horrible that I wasn't doing it. And so when I'm sitting in the office one day, I Google how to build a mobile app. I knew that there was technologies to help me get my coffee quicker. I mean, there clearly had to be a way for me to connect with my friends who were still in prison. There are over 2.3 million people that are incarcerated in the United States and 11 million globally. How are we being thoughtful about connecting this marginalized community? And so we built Flikshop. Flikshop allows our users the ability to take a picture, add some quick text. Yo, what's good, bro? I'm at Cornell Tech this weekend. I can't wait for you to come home so you can see these amazing audiences that I have an opportunity to be able to preside in front of. Press send. That's a real Flikshop that just went out this morning. Press send. We take that photo and that message and we print it on a real tangible postcard and we ship it to any person in any cell anywhere in the country. We've connected over 170,000 families around the country. And I'm excited to also announce that we've partnered with other second chance hirers, people who are being thoughtful about committing their HR practices to bringing in underserved talent in marginalized communities. And some employers like Delta Airlines, Boeing, Bank of America, Amazon, Meta, and Slack are our existing customers who are also being thoughtful about increasing their community engagement practices, their social impact strategies, and turning a CSR conversation into a space that allows for us to be able to connect some of the 600,000 people that are coming home from prisons and jails every year. I feel so blessed to be able to lead this kind of company where my team members are completely committed to changing the world in a demonstrable way, allowing us to be able to create stronger families, safer communities, and challenging the Department of Corrections to actually be thoughtful about rehabilitation. I am also excited to be able to talk about the Flikshop School of Business that we launched as a result of an award that we received from the Aspen Institute that allows us to be able to help teach tech and entrepreneurship skills to other returning citizens that are coming out of these cells. Because let me assure you all, and most of you probably know, if you can build it, they don't care if you got a felony on your record. They're like, yo, but can you build it? I mean, I got a data analyst right now who is being thoughtful about helping to streamline the way that we think about corrections and then working at the DOC after working at Flikshop, which is incredible while we think about what their redemption path is going to look like and what their family is going to see inside of their faces every day when they walk home from this job that straight out of prison is now paying them $125,000 a year. I can't imagine living in a world where we don't have the opportunity to be able to express the same kind of empathy that my mom had for me, because I promise you, this is how we change the world together. In fact, we want to continue to be able to build a community of people, of leaders who also want to be able to help contribute to the families who are the invisible victims of incarceration, most notably our children with incarcerated parents. So we don't talk about the children that have a mom or a dad that's sitting in a prison cell and now their lives are completely ruptured because of a decision their mom and dad made, and they don't have an auntie or uncle that can give them even the small 99 cents to allow them to be able to send one of our postcards into the facilities. So our Flikshop angels that are a part of our community bands together and they purchase Flikshop credits that we give to children so that they can keep sending these funny face selfies to mom and dad completely for free. Now, I'm excited to be able to talk about the work that we're doing at Flikshop, especially in rooms like this, because you all are the leaders that are going to help me shift the way we think about HR practices, how we invest, where we divest, and where we're spending attention inside of our dinner table conversations. I live in DC where legislation happens every day, and I promise you, I've learned over the time that it doesn't happen on Capitol Hill. That decision-making happens at our dinner tables. And the only way for us to be able to shift the conversation and begin to erase the stigma, the people who are living in this country, all 70 million of them with a felony conviction just like me, can only change when we're doing it over some croissants and some chicken. Thank you guys so much for giving me the space to be able to join you this morning. I'm super excited to be able to be here, Cornell.